What's up, everybody? It is KT Vindicare. This is going to be my rave for Star Wars. This is my top 10 Star Wars characters that Disney has introduced. Now, I've already ranted a lot about all the mistakes that I think Disney has made with the franchise, but there are some good quality characters that they have actually brought into the series that I think have been very good for the series to have. And I just want to go through these pretty quickly. I'm going to talk a little bit about each one. All right, so number 10 is Jyn Erso. Jyn Erso is the protagonist from Rogue One, and I think she is a very well constructed character. I am very happy that she was like the main reason why the Death Star plans were captured by the rebellion, and she's a very well done character. She's a little one dimensional, and she does kind of follow the whole family and father arc that has been so repeated throughout Star Wars. But in general, I think she's just a very well justified character, well written character who does a lot of different things, and she's got her own like downsides and everything else like that. But she's a cool character. I like her. Number 9, Saw Gerrera. Now, Saw Gerrera is actually not a Disney creation. He's actually originally from the Clone Wars. But Saw Gerrera really is given a lot more life in Rebels and in Rogue One. So I'm going to consider him for the sake of this video as a character that Disney has really fleshed out. Now, Saw is cool because he kind of shows you the really fanatical side of the rebellion, how much war can really warp a person into something that, even though Saw is fighting on the side of the good guys, his methods and his tactics are really something that you would consider to be evil in almost any other context. But he's one of the perfect examples of how, in order to fight evil, you must become a little evil yourself. And it's one of the things that makes him such a great character. Number 8, BB-8. BB-8 is appropriately put in at this slot. Now, BB-8 is cool as just a droid character. He's one of the, in my opinion, the best examples that the sequel trilogy has in following up on what the original trilogy did. Now, BB-8 does most of the same things that R2-D2 does. He's not as good as R2-D2, don't get me wrong, but he has a lot of personality for something that's basically just a ball that rolls around and everything. The studios and the animators have done a good job of making him feel very lifelike in a way that R2-D2 did in the original trilogy, and he's just a good character for that reason. Number 7, Poe Dameron. Poe Dameron is easily my favorite character from the sequel trilogy, and that's kind of a problem in and of itself, that I like Poe Dameron more than I like any of the other characters. And I like Poe Dameron because he's so flawed. He's one of the only characters that in the sequel trilogy that they do a reasonable job of making his flaws believable. Just like Saw Gerrera, he is a perfect example of how war can really warp a person into something that they didn't necessarily want to be. Poe's the hotshot, rebel ace, and he means well, and everything that he's doing is everything that he does. All of his motivations are for the cause and for the greater good. But he himself is a very flawed figure, and I love that about him. I think he's the best written character in the sequel trilogy by far. Number 6, Ezra Bridger. Now, I got some issues with Ezra Bridger, but Ezra Bridger is cool in a way that Rey is not. In that Ezra is a very believable character, even with all the outrageous stuff that he does, especially that outrageous finale of Rebels. But Ezra is cool because you meet him when he's just a kid. Again, he lost his parents. It's a common theme in Star Wars. But he ends up joining the rebellion despite what he not necessarily wanting to at first, and becomes a Jedi Knight, or a Padawan learner, because he never really became a full-fledged Jedi Knight. And his story is very similar to Luke Skywalker's, except Ezra is less powerful, less certain of himself, and way more flawed. And it makes him a very believable, very lovable character. and more than worthy of the protagonist of what turned out to be such a great TV show. Number 5, Chopper. Chopper is just like BB-8, except Chopper is such a bad droid. So, Chopper is funny. He's just very funny. He has a lot of the same characteristics that R2D2 has, except he's just got more attitude to him. If R2D2 had a bad attitude, he would be Chopper, and I love that about Chopper. Number 4, Kanan Jarrus. Now, Kanan Jarrus is the best role that Freddie Prinze Jr. has ever played, and you can quote me on that. Kanan Jarrus is a really cool character. When you meet him at the very beginning, you don't even know he's a Jedi. You just think he's a rebel. And then all of a sudden he whips out that lightsaber, which he has to put together on the fly, and all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, the guy's a Jedi. And you have the same reaction that the Empire troops do. It's so cool the way that he does it, and his character arc throughout Rebels is one that is it's so enthralling. He's so weak by normal Jedi standards, but normal Jedi standards don't apply in the current era. He would never be able to run with the guys like Obi-Wan Kenobi or Anakin Skywalker. But it doesn't matter, because he exists in a timeline where the Jedi are supposed to be extinct, and he scares the shit out of the Empire. And that's so awesome. Everything about Kanan Jarrus' character, all the way down to how weak he actually is in the grand scheme of things. Like, even Ezra is probably more powerful than he is by the end of the series. But everything about Kanan Jarrus and his power level, his abilities, or lack thereof, it makes Rebels so believable and so compelling. One of my favorite scenes in all of Star Wars is actually seeing Ezra and Kanan running away from Darth Vader because they know there's nothing they can do to this dude, and how terrified they are of how powerful he is. It's such a good scene. I love that about it. Number 3, K2SO. K2SO is, he is the best droid since R2D2. He has all the personality quips of C-3PO, but it's done up in a way that's cool rather than just comedic. And his arc in Rogue One, if it wasn't for the next character on this list, he would easily be my favorite character in that movie. Whoever wrote Rogue One, send a message to sequel trilogy. This is how you do comedic relief. K2SO is perfect comedic relief for Star Wars. Perfect. Number 2, Cassian Andor. I love this character. Following my previous themes about Saw Gerrera, Cassian Andor is a perfect example of he himself is a casualty of war. Even before his sacrifice at the end of Rogue One, you already know Cassian Andor is dead as a person. The war with the Empire has driven him to a place where he no longer cares about anything other than just the cause. He himself, as a human being, is so beaten and defeated. It's not until Jyn comes along and gives him a small ray of hope that you see that Cassian Andor sees himself as a person again. Because until we get to that point, he is just a soldier. He is a product of the war. And you feel for him, dude. You feel for him. You don't know, he doesn't even explicitly go into detail about what he's lost. But he doesn't need to, because you already know this man is a product of the war in a way that's so human, and it brings Star Wars to an empathetic level that very few other characters have. Number 1, Hera Syndulla. Hera Syndulla is just cool. It's just cool. Disney, this is how you do a strong female lead. Hera Syndulla is, first of all, she's a Twi'lek, which makes her awesome just by itself. I mean, we've seen so few prominent alien characters in the entire franchise, not just with Disney's sequel trilogy, but the franchise as a whole. There's been so few of them. There's been Ahsoka Tano, there's been Chewbacca, and there's been Yoda. Those have been the only prominent non-human characters until Hera Syndulla comes along. Hera Syndulla is an ace pilot, which already gives her plenty of, badass points in my book. But she's also very protective of her crew. She's almost like a mother figure to everyone in this show. And her romance with Kanan Jarrus is very believable. And she herself is just you're rooting for her at every single point. She's not perfect. She's overzealous. She is an ace pilot. I've already said that, but she's an ace pilot, and she's just such a good character that when you're following along with the series as a whole, you want to see more of her. She steals the show in every single scene that she's in almost. Her voice actor, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but her voice actor is perfect. She sounds as sexy as she looks. And this is coming from, a character that's not even supposed to be human, but the Twi'leks are just like that. She's the best character that has been written into the series post Return of the Jedi, post George Lucas era. She is the best Disney character, and the series is stronger for having her in it. Also, her little shout out in Rogue One was pretty cool too. Anyway, that is my list. Disney has not been perfect. They have made a lot of missteps and blunders with this franchise. However, these are 10 characters that do not feel like missteps and that have made the franchise as a whole stronger. So, for all of you out there, I am not just a hater of Disney. I am not just a hater of all of the new things Star Wars. There are some characters and there are some things that have been written properly into the franchise, but I wish I could say there were more. And that's my rave. I'll see you guys next time.